Part 11 of the second number of Art in Australia, 1917. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. B. E. Minns by Bertram Stevens. Illustrated by Study of a Head. Watercolour in the possession of A. H. Hattersley, Esquire, Sydney. In all the paintings by B. E. Minns that I have seen, there is evidence that he has invested his subjects with a certain amount of sentiment. Probably he was attracted to the Australian aboriginals as much by the sentimental interest attaching to the survivors of a fading race as by their picturesqueness, and he seems to have mused over the poetry of a landscape long before he attempted to paint it. When in England he used very often, in spring and summer, to cycle up from his home at Winchelsea to London, starting in the evening in order to enjoy the beauty of the night, stopping at a wood on the way to hear the music of the nightingales, and riding into town with the flower growers' carts bound for Covent Garden. Some part of every year he wandered about in Brittany or other parts of North France, delighting in the then tranquil countryside and transferring some of his quiet joy into his watercolours. To communicate in colour the pleasure of a dreamer is a rare gift, and I think it is that characteristic which constitutes the principal interest in Minns' work. In the handling of his favourite medium, Minns has generally avoided the prettiness which is the pitfall in front of anyone with a romantic temperament using body colour as fluently as he does. The absence of anything like pastiness gives his work the delicacy which, as a rule, is only attained by the use of the pure medium. He is one of the few artists here who have given much time to the painting of the figure in watercolour, and he wished to be represented by a study of that kind. I hope that he will devote himself again to the blackfellows who attracted him so strongly at the beginning of his artistic career. He knew them well as a boy, for Benjamin Edwin Minns was country bred. Born and brought up in the Hunter River district, New South Wales, in 1866, and spending some of his early years at Inverell, he had thoroughly absorbed the spirit of the bush before he came to Sydney at the age of 18. It was in Inverell that he received his first lessons in painting from a Mrs. Thornton. In Sydney he went to the Technical College, where he studied under Lucian Henry. Later on he joined the life class at the Old Art Society, where the instructor, A. J. Daplin, was following the methods of the École des Beaux-Arts successfully. Not long after Charles Conder came to Sydney, Minns met him, and was at once attracted by the man as well as by his art. They became very friendly, sharing a studio and going out sketching together. Conder's fine sense of decoration no doubt influenced Minns' work a good deal. Conder was then employed by the Illustrated Sydney News, the pioneer journal of its kind, and he obtained for Minns a position on the same staff. For some years the latter drew regularly for that paper, and contributed occasionally to the Sydney Mail and the Town and Country Journal. Later on he began to illustrate current events for the Daily Telegraph. The drawings were made on zinc with printer's ink, and were probably the first to appear regularly in an Australian daily. The Bulletin, established in Sydney in 1880, gave wider scope than any previous publication for the development of black and white art. Editor J. F. Archibald formed a high opinion of Minns' ability to interpret an imaginative conception, and therefore gave him poems of that order to illustrate for the paper. Minns' best drawings appeared in its columns before he left for England in 1895. He also sent out work from England, and after his return to Australia in 1915 he contributed cartoons and other drawings regularly. When Minns arrived in London, he intended to stay for 5 years at the most. He went first to the editor of St. Paul's, then one of the leading illustrated papers, which Phil May had just left for Punch. His pen drawings were at once accepted, and thenceforward for 20 years he spent most of his time in making illustrations of various kinds for the leading journals and some book publishers. That, however, was bread and butter work. His best self was expressed in watercolour. He exhibited frequently at the Royal Academy, the Royal Institute of Painters in Watercolour, the New Salon, and other exhibitions. His paintings sold readily. Colonel Rhodes and other members of the Rhodes family, Mr. Howard Smith and a few other collectors, acquired nearly all of his best watercolours, so that very few came out to Australia. Minns now proposes to stay in his native country for some years, and it may be that Australians will see even more charming work than any he has done. The danger of facile production, induced by the popularity of his watercolours, is not likely to affect a conscientious artist. End of Part 11.